Go to Walmart on Lakeland Boulevard. Checking the routing looks good. It's time to get started. Well, good morning everybody. This is David with Tesla Blue Freedom channel, and today I would like to talk to you about the Tesla range anxiety and how I have conquered that. Now, anybody who is getting an EV, especially earlier on, okay, I was just full self-driving going around a corner and it stopped and I had to goose it for a second, and now it's continuing on. I'm going to have to report that somehow to Tesla. I think I figured out how to do that thanks to the comments from people in my video number 1. Anyway, let me tell you my story about how I conquered Tesla range anxiety. And this is basically true for all EVs, but basically mostly for Teslas. When we very first picked up this Tesla, I told you in my first video that we picked it up at 11 o'clock in the morning on Good Friday. This is the Friday before Easter. It was April the 18th, and we hit the road for Tulsa, 600 miles away, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We did not have an awful lot of time to get oriented and learn how to use this Tesla. It was the first time we had ever had a Tesla, first time we'd ever had an EV, so we were basically learning everything. We had a very short briefing at the Tesla dealership when we picked it up, because I had asked them to charge it to 100% because we were taking off on this long trip, and they forgot to do that. They had only charged it to 80%. So while we were there picking it up, they drove us over to the charger and they plugged it in, and while it was charging from 80 to 100%, the Tesla representative, I don't want to call them a salesperson because they're not exactly a salesperson, they're a representative. This very nice young lady, she gave me as much of a briefing as she could while it charged up from 80% to 100%. Now, I had a little bit of a understanding of how to set in a navigation for where we wanted to go. And once you set in a navigation, if you have Tesla full self-driving, and that's the main reason I got a Tesla, then a big blue button appears on the screen, and once you push and hold that blue button, it will start driving itself to your destination. And if it is in a place where it can understand how to get out of that place and onto the roads, it will do that, and it will take you to your destination. And when it gets you to your destination, you're going to have to park it yourself because full self-driving can't do that yet. And we're right now in the very early part of June 2025, and the latest updates do not permit Tesla to park itself when it gets to your destination. This is one of the things I'm going to have to work on as far as submitting to Tesla. I know they're working on this, but you can't have fully autonomous driving, which is one of Tesla's goals, until you can tell the car, go to this location, find a parking place, and put yourself in that parking place. And until it can do that, you will not have fully autonomous driving. Anyway, we were headed for Tulsa from where we are in central Mississippi. It was normally an 11-hour drive if you go the long way, or a 9-hour drive if you're in a hurry and don't make a lot of stops and take all the shortcuts. There's not a lot of interstates that go directly from here to there. So you're basically going to have to take some back roads and some not so good roads and some interstates and some 4-lane divided highways that are not interstates. But as I had said in my first video, Tesla is the only car that's sold in the US right now that will go on roads that are not highways. So I got home, I went to load the car and then to program in our destination. Now, I am used to using Google Maps, and I know that Tesla mapping system is based on Google Maps, so I was thinking that I could put in my destination and then put in waypoints. I was not able to do that, and there's a way to do it, and I haven't figured it out yet, and when I do, I'll put up a video on that. How do you program a destination and then put in waypoints to that destination? But I was not able to do that, so I put in the destination of our daughter's house in Tulsa, and it put in a routing that would take us by a supercharger in Vicksburg, and then a supercharger in Little Rock, Arkansas, and then another supercharger farther off in Arkansas near the Arkansas-Oklahoma border, and then take us to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Well, not knowing anything, I decided we're going to trust Tesla navigation. That was a mistake. You need to learn a lot more about Tesla navigation and the stops you have to make before you take off on a long trip. That was my mistake. Of course, we had 2 hours to pack the car and do everything else we needed to do before we took off on this trip, so I really didn't have time for that, and I was trusting the Tesla navigation. Okay, so we took off on our trip. Instead of going the usual way, which is kind of a shortcut through the back roads of Mississippi up through Yazoo City, and then going through Lake Village, Arkansas, and then Pine Bluff, and then Little Rock, and then Conway, all the way up through the Muskogee Turnpike to Tulsa, the Tesla navigation took us down south of us to Interstate 20 to a supercharger in Vicksburg where it said we would need to top off, and then up through some of the back roads of Louisiana until it connected with our standard route that we usually take in Arkansas. And we got to Interstate 20 and it took us into Louisiana. It failed to stop at the supercharger in Vicksburg. And this turned out to be a very range anxiety inducing situation. At this point, it said we needed to head to the supercharger in Little Rock, Arkansas, and we would have like 3% battery left when we got there. And I'm thinking, oh no. Well, fortunately, before the trip, the day before the trip, I had gotten on Google Maps and I had looked at EV charging. Now, if you haven't done this on Google Maps on like a desktop computer or even on your mobile device, you can go to Google Maps and you can search for Tesla superchargers and it will bring up all the Tesla superchargers. You can also bring up Tesla chargers and it will show you the superchargers and it will show you the Tesla destination chargers. Now, destination chargers charge at a lower rate than a supercharger. A supercharger, in 15 minutes, you can get like more than 100 miles of range. A destination charger, you can get maybe 15 miles of range in an hour, which as opposed to a home house current charger, you get like 3 or 4 miles of range for an hour of charging. So we were thinking, oh my, let me see if there's a Tesla destination charger between where we are and Little Rock, Arkansas. So I brought up the Google map on my phone and it didn't show any of that. And so I then, on the Google map on my phone, I looked for EV chargers. Now, the latest time that I used this, which was the day before the trip, you could go to Google Maps, it says search for, or you can go over on the top of the map listing right there that on your screen, it's got a bunch of little buttons you can click. One of them says hotels, one of them says restaurants, one of them says something else, but a new one is EV chargers. And if you go ahead to this button, click it, it shows all the EV chargers, not just the Tesla chargers, and I could see there were a whole bunch of them. Now, normally, my wife and I, on our trip to Tulsa, we like to stop in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, at a restaurant called Colton Steakhouse. They don't have any of those in Mississippi, but it's a good place to stop because it's reliable, decent steaks. We could get pretty quick service. We can split a meal because my wife and I, we're both in our 70s. We don't eat as much as we did when we were in our 20s and 30s. And we can go ahead and hit the road. And I looked at the Colton Steakhouse in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and I could see there were 3 EV chargers right in that area. Actually, there were 4 of them in that area, right there next to the Colton Steakhouse. So he said, we're going to go there. I know we can find one of these low voltage chargers and maybe we can get the level 2 charging, which will give us, while we go in and eat, it'll give us an extra 15 miles of charge, which will give us a good safety margin to get to Hot Springs to a supercharger. Okay, so we went there. We drove to Pine Bluff, Arkansas. We bypassed the southern border of the city on the interstate that they have there and got off on the exit on the west side of the city where Colton Steakhouse was. And we were following the directions to get to these non-Tesla chargers, and they had some high-speed chargers. Now, the high-speed non-Tesla chargers, right now, most of them are not compatible with the Tesla plug. Now, the Tesla plug is what's called NACS, that's North American Charging Standard. And they're trying to get a lot more of the US EV manufacturers to adopt the NACS charger so you can go ahead and charge your EV at either a Tesla supercharger or some other charger that is non-Tesla. There is one charging company, Iona, that is starting to come out with a lot of NACS charging so that you can take your Tesla there and not have to get an adapter. However, right now, the high-speed chargers in the US that have plugs that are not compatible with the Tesla, they are usually the CCS1 standard. Now, this is a plug that requires, you can get right now, if you have a Tesla that is made in the last few years, you can buy an adapter and plug it into the charging hose. I want to call it a hose because it looks like a hose on a gas pump, but it's really not a hose, it's a cable. You can plug it into the hose, and then it's got the NACS plug on the other end that can plug into your Tesla. In the 2 hours between when we picked up the Tesla and started our trip, I was unable to buy one locally. I have several instances where I called up these people and said, do you have one? And they said, no, but you can order it online. The Tesla dealership said that. Best Buy said that in 2 different locations. I don't want it online. I want to pick it up now, because if I ordered it online, it would be here tomorrow or the next day and would be gone. So I didn't want that. And so we had only the Tesla charger that came with the Model Y in our trunk that would plug into household current and give us the 3 or 4 miles of charge per hour. I don't want to say miles per hour, that sounds like a speed, but it would give us 3 or 4 miles per hour of charge. And it had also basically a dryer plug adapter that would plug into like the 3-prong outlet and give us like the 15 miles in an hour. We had that in the trunk of our car. And also that came with the Tesla is what they call I think it's the 1220 adapter, which is the very low speed, the 15 miles per hour of charge adapter that will charge us up at a non-Tesla charger if they have that particular 1220 type of plug. Okay. I will be very happy when they get a lot of standardization among charging plugs. And so we're having significant range anxiety. So we got to this exit off of the interstate in Pine Bluff where Colton's restaurant was, and they had these 4 different chargers. Well, we went to the first one, and all they had was a CCS1 adapter. This was a high-speed charging unit that had a plug that was not compatible with the Tesla, and we did not have the adapter that would let us plug into it. Okay, so we drove off to the next one, and they had both the CCS1 adapter and they had the 1220 adapter. I said, well, maybe we could use the 1220 plug. And so in order to use the second adapter, the second charging station that we came up to, I had to sign up for their app. And in order to even try to get a charge there, I had to pay them $20 and put it on my account. And so I tried using that 1220 adapter to plug into the Tesla. Nope, did not work. And I could just hear, the game show buzzer. It says when you got the wrong answer. That's what I was hearing in my head at the time. Oh no, oh, this is horrible. Well, about this time, we had left, 1:30 in the afternoon when we got to Pine Bluff at the Colton's exit, and we were in these charging station areas. We were within the property of about 3 or 4 car dealerships, okay? And the car dealerships had these charging stations there. And so we found a third charging station. It was like 5:15 in the afternoon by this time, and we got to this third charging station, and they only had the 1220 charging outlet. And I got the 1220 adapter that came with the car, plugged into their cable, and I plugged it into the car, and it worked fine. It plugged in. I'm saying, yay, it works fine. And I went up to the little box that was on the side of a building, and they had the credit card reader right there, and it looked like it would take a Apple Pay. So I held my phone up to it, and it went ding, you have been accepted. And I said, okay, start charging. And I waited, and nothing happened. And I unplugged it and plugged it back in, and it said in the little LED screen or LCD screen there, unable to charge. What's going on with this? So maybe it didn't take the Apple Pay. So I got out my credit card, which has a touch chip on it, and I put the chip up next to their card reader, and ding, yes, your card has been accepted. And then it said again, unable to start charging. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? So we said, oh, there's one more, and it's not in this car dealership property area. We need to go over and go bypass the Colton's restaurant, and there's a hotel back there, and they've got another charging station there. And so we went to go to that hotel area, and when we went to get out of the car dealership property, the gate was closed and locked. And it was after 5 o'clock on a Friday evening. And so what are we going to do? I don't want to ram the gate and crash through it. It'll hurt the car, it'll hurt the gate, it'll be illegal, we'll get arrested. I don't want to do that. They had a padlock on it, and Jan, my wife, said, when we passed that car dealership there was somebody in there who was a janitor. They were cleaning up. Maybe they can let us out. So I backed up, and she went in, she knocked on the glass, and the guy came out, and he let us out. Thank goodness we were able to get out of that car dealership. By the way, I logged on to Google Maps. I found all 3 of those car charging stations in the Google Maps app. They said they were open 24/7, which is why we used it. And I added a comment saying, do not believe 24/7. They are in a locked area that is only open during business hours. We got locked in. Fortunately, we got out. So anyway, we went out of the car dealership. We bypassed Colton's. Here it is. It's 5:30, coming up on 6 o'clock on a Friday night on a holiday weekend, and we looked at Colton's as we drove by, and there was a line out the door, 50 people waiting to get in the restaurant. And I looked at my wife, and she looked at me, and we were thinking, we don't want to wait in line on this trip. We need to keep going. So we went ahead and kept driving. We went to the hotel charging station, and we had to download a new app for that. Fortunately, I didn't have to put in any money for that one. It had the 1220 adapter. I plugged it into the hose, the cable. I plugged it into the car. I said, start charging. Nope, it would not start charging no matter what I could do. Okay, I'm going to finish this up pretty quick, and I'll tell you a few more things that are very interesting. We went ahead and started heading out to Little Rock Supercharger. When we left the hotel, I plugged in the Little Rock Supercharger into the nav system, and it said, you are projected to have 6% battery left when you get to Little Rock, and to do that you're going to have to maintain a speed of 54 miles an hour or less. What else can we do? Range anxiety surges to the fore. Okay, so here we are on this interstate highway between Pine Bluff, Arkansas and Little Rock, Arkansas, and the supercharger is about 10 miles south of Little Rock, so we had to go out of our way a little bit to get to it. But the car knew the way to carry this away. We're on this highway. It's an interstate highway, which in Arkansas the speed limit is 75 miles an hour. I set our speed to 54 miles an hour, and blessedly we did not have a whole bunch of traffic to contend with on that Friday evening going through Little Rock on, I believe it was 530 interstate. And we got to the Little Rock supercharging station with a lot more charge than it projected. We had 7% instead of 6%. So, oh my goodness, that was some range anxiety. But at the same time, we had to admit that sometimes Tesla navigation knows what it's doing, and sometimes it doesn't. So that's my story about conquering range anxiety in a Tesla on our very first long trip, 2 hours after we picked up this Tesla, and I hope it helps you understand more about what's going on with Tesla, navigation, range anxiety, and how you also can conquer range anxiety. And in the next video, I plan to read a lot of the comments I got on video number 1. This is video number 2, and in video number 1, it's got more than 21,000 views already, and it was only put up 7 days ago as I make this recording. Among those 21,000 views, there are 600 comments. Marvelous comments. I love hearing from people in comments on the video, and among all these comments, I've read every single one of them. I'd love to respond to them. I'm going to try, but I can't guarantee I will, just because there are so many of them. Thank you very much, everybody who commented. But among these comments, there's probably 10 to a dozen of them that are really good and contain material that I think you, the viewers of this channel, would love to hear about. So in video number 3, what I plan to do is take out selected comments that I've received and have the Microsoft Read Aloud feature read these out loud. My eyes don't let me read very small print very quickly, so rather than me having to hesitate on every word, I'm just going to let Microsoft read it out loud to you, but I'll probably comment on some of them. I love hearing from you. I love hearing your stories about what you experienced in Tesla, what you found out that other people might need to know. And if you would like me to read your comment out loud in a future video, let me know that, or if you object to me reading it out loud in a future video, let me know that as well. But anyway, this is what I plan to do in video number 3, and I just hope everybody is enjoying these videos. If you have a Tesla, that you're enjoying that, and that you have a beautiful day for whatever day you have coming up, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.